Bacha, it appears we are at a stalemate in Bijapur. The soldiers have tried everything, but they just can't breach the fort.
Have you tried using cannons?
We have, Bacha, but they have cannons too. They have been battering our soldiers left, right and center. On top of that, the Marathas have cut off our food supply.
These Marathas are such a pain. Guess I have to come take care of this myself. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. I'll take care of the Marathas and the Adil Shahis. May the sun never set on the Mughal Empire. We shall crush everyone who dares to oppose us. Aurangzeb ruled for 49 years, from 1658 to 1707. His goal during his 49 years as emperor was to extend the frontiers of the Mughal Empire as far as possible. One of the earliest expansions of Aurangzeb was in the east. In 1664, Aurangzeb appointed Shaista Khan, the governor of Bengal. Shaista Khan eliminated the Portuguese and the Arakanese pirates from the region, and in 1666 recaptured the port of Chittagong from the Arakanese king. Chittagong remained a key port in the east throughout Mughal rule. In the south, the ruler of Bijapur, Sikandar Adil Shah, refused to submit to the authority of the Mughals. And so, in 1685, Aurangzeb dispatched his son, Muhammad Azam Shah, with a force of nearly 50,000 men to capture Bijapur fort. The Mughals were not able to capture the fort after months of trying. Outraged by the lack of progress, Aurangzeb himself arrived in 1686 and commanded the siege of Bijapur. After 8 days of heavy fighting, the fort was finally breached and the Mughals won, thus extending their empire further to the south. After Bijapur, only one rebel ruler remained in the south, Abul Hasan Qutub Shah. He was the ruler of Golconda, and he refused to surrender to the Mughals. He and his soldiers fortified themselves in the Kollur mine, which was at that time the world's most productive diamond mine. So it was a very important asset for whoever controlled it. In 1687, Aurangzeb and the mighty Mughal army descended on the Qutub Shahi fortress, which was impenetrable to even war elephants. Well, technically they had to ascend because the fortress was built on a massive hill. This siege lasted almost 8 months and took a heavy toll on the Mughals, including the death of an experienced commander named Kilich Khan Bahadur. Eventually, using a system of elaborate scaffolding, they managed to climb over the walls. When the siege finally ended, the Qutub Shahi ruler surrendered. Aurangzeb also walked away with 7 massive diamonds, becoming the world's wealthiest monarch. Cha-ching! The Mughal Empire reached its greatest territorial extent under Aurangzeb's rule. The empire stretched all the way from Chittagong in the east to Kabul in the west. The Mughal flag flew high from Kashmir in the north to Tanjore in the south. When the emperor went to sleep at night, he probably dreamt of building an empire that stretched across the entire subcontinent. To his credit, he came pretty close to achieving this dream. However, he was rudely awakened by the ringing alarm of rebellions. You see, Aurangzeb's hunger for territory meant that he was relentless in his warfare. To become the emperor of the world, one has to destroy anything that stands in the way. Unfortunately, this also means making a lot of enemies. Some enemies were very good at fighting back. Let's look at why Aurangzeb faced so many rebellions. The rebellions against Aurangzeb were driven by two factors. Firstly, there was an agricultural crisis, which put a lot of people under distress. Secondly, there was a lot of anger amongst the people because of the religious policies of Aurangzeb, which favored the Muslims. Aurangzeb followed a system of land tenancy called the Jagirdari system. Under this system, the emperor selected a group of Jagirdars and granted them a piece of land called a Jagir. Instead of being paid a salary, the collectors or Jagirdars took their pay in the form of revenue. They used this revenue to maintain their armies. And the condition for a land grant was that any excess revenue made through the land was sent to the emperor. Sounds simple enough, right? Wrong. You see, because individual people were in charge of collecting revenue, they tried to set the taxes as high as possible. The higher the taxes, the greater the revenue for the Jagirdars. Everyone wants money. This led to a situation where the taxes kept increasing, putting a lot of pressure on the common folk, which made them very angry. On top of this, the Jagirdars held a temporary position at the discretion of the emperor. They were only around for 3 years before being replaced. This meant that they tried to make as much money as possible in their short tenure. They also had no incentive to improve the lives of the people living and farming on their lands. They were just in it for the money. If the peasants refused to pay the revenue, they were punished very severely. Some of them had no choice but to sell their wives, children, and cattle in order to serve. Many farmers abandoned their lands to escape the extortion. Basically, the Jagirdars were exploiting the peasants. The peasants started to either flee this oppressive system by moving to other areas, or sometimes even resorting to armed resistance. As a result, the crops produced started to decrease alarmingly. The agricultural revenue to the empire declined, and there were troubles and rebellions popping up all over the place. The Jats were a farming community living around Delhi, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, and Rajasthan. In the year 1669, Jats rebelled against Aurangzeb under the leadership of a local zamindar named Gokul. Gokul convinced the farmers to stop paying taxes, and naturally this angered the emperor. In retaliation, Aurangzeb ordered the destruction of Hindu temples, which pushed the tensions further.